So I want to start this video by addressing the few questions that I know I'm going to get down in the comments below. One, I know that Dejounte Murray cannot be traded until January 5th. It's January 1st at the time of this recording. Happy New Year, by the way, everyone. So he's eligible to be traded in like a week. I understand. Thank you for telling me that. Number two, why would the Hawks trade Dejounte Murray when they just traded 3 first-round picks to get him last year? Well, frankly, that team sucks. That's why right now I think they're 11-19. That has them, or they're 13-19. Sorry, Hawks fans, a little bit better than I thought. But unfortunately, that does have them 11th place in the East, which is 4 back of 8. So they're not that entirely close. Although, yes, I get it. It's a long season, so plenty of stuff can happen as we go on. And also, if you're a Heat fan watching this, you might be saying, hey, why are you making another trade video? The team is doing decent enough right now. Well, one, I've had people ask me. Okay, well, a few people have asked me. One guy asked me, but a couple of other people have been interested. And most importantly, it interests me, and it's my channel, so I can do what I want, as long as you people enjoy it, because I do keep the audience in mind at all times, trying to walk a fine line there. Not trying to be like a Doja Cat saying she don't appreciate her fans. I appreciate the people watching this video very much. So anyways, enough babbling. Let's talk a little bit about Dejounte Murray. I want to start off by talking about who he is as a player at this point. So first off, he's only 27 years old, so I think he fits the timeline of this team very, very nice, because he is a one-time All-Star already, but he's also young enough where you can build along him and Bam and Tyler Hero, because Murray does have a 4-year extension already in place. But we'll talk about that a little bit later as we go on. So currently, this season, Dejounte Murray is averaging 20.5 points per game, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds. If you round up, I will, because I do like Dejounte Murray. So his numbers are obviously very, very nice. Keep in mind, he's not handling the ball as much because he has Trae Young on that team with him. But when Dejounte Murray was the guy in San Antonio, we're talking about a guy that was dropping like triple doubles consistently, almost 10 assists per game. So it's a guy that can very clearly move the ball. And this year also, because this is a big concern when you're talking about guys, wanting to be on the Miami Heat. Obviously, Jimmy and Bam aren't the best three-point shooters, so you want some more spacing around them, which Kyle Lowry this year, I will give him credit, is like one of the most efficient shooters in the whole league at like 44%. But obviously, Lowry's going to end up being in the deal. Spoiler alert. He'd be replaced by Dejounte Murray, who is at 38% from 3 this season, which if he can keep up that pace, that is... Hold on, stop the video. If I miss this shot, I'm asked. If I make it, you subscribe. Let's get it. Cash money, baby. Let's get it. I'd love to continue to get that out of him. Now, for his career, he's around 34% from 3, so maybe it's not sustainable. Maybe it is. Only time would tell, but I don't think there's a huge concern as far as the shooting. Now, that's all the offensive side of the ball that we talked about. Defensively, dude is a dog. He's exactly the type of point of attack defender, perimeter defender that you would love to have on this team, particularly next to Tyler Hero, who defense is obviously not his strong suit. He's great on the offensive end. Let me just make that clear, because anytime I say the slightest negative thing about Tyler Hero, I get a bunch of comments calling me a hater. I'm not a hater. I love Tyler Hero. I do a lot. But I do think his fit with Dejounte Murray would be awesome. So I like him as a player. I like his fit on this team. We'll get a little bit more into that later as we talk about the trade I got. But I do want to look at Dejounte Murray's current contract to kind of figure out how we can make a trade work. So this year, he's on the last year of his deal, which is he's getting paid about $17 million for the season, right? But after this, he has a 4-year extension that kicks in which he'll be making $25 million, 27-ish, 29-ish, and then it all wraps up in the 2027-2028 season when he's 31 years old, in which he'll be getting $30 million. So, and that is a player option, by the way. So if he plays well, he'll probably opt out of that last year and re-sign somewhere for more money. Now, this is a lot of money, yeah? So you can't just trade for a guy with this much money if you don't absolutely love his fit, because once you get his contract, you are stuck with him. I mean, not stuck. Obviously, you could trade him. The Hawks are considering it as we speak, but it's not a guy that you could just easily get rid of, right? If things do go south, if you don't like his fit on this team, now you're talking about maybe having to attach first-round picks or other assets to get rid of him. So you have to be sure that you want Dejounte Murray, because this is a substantial contract. That being said, I don't think it's that much compared to what we're seeing a lot of other guys get. I think Duncan Robinson's getting like, what, $19 million a year? and you're talking about Dejounte Murray not getting too much more than that. You're talking about, stars like Jaylen Brown and whatever other stars just signed recently. You're talking about them getting paid $50+ million a season. So to be able to have Dejounte Murray essentially every year under $30 million, it's not that bad a contract. Obviously, he's not a star, but I do think he's a guy that can be close to that, and I think he'd fit perfectly in this system. That being said, I spent some time in the trade machine and cooked up an idea that I personally like a lot. I'll throw that up right here. And I have the Miami Heat receiving Dejounte Murray and Patty Mills and shipping out Kyle Lowry, Caleb Martin, and Nikola Jovic. So, and 2 first-round picks, obviously. I guess that's the most important thing. Now, a year ago, the Hawks got Dejounte Murray for 3 first-round picks and a pick swap. So, obviously, if they were to trade him in such a short time, I think they would at least like to recoup most of that value. And again, I think they need to trade him, not because he's a bad player, but because clearly that experiment with Trae Young just does not work. In theory, it makes some sense because Trae Young is offensive, Dejounte Murray can be defensive, a little bit of a two-way player there, but it hasn't worked. And at this point, they're just wasting Trae Young's prime. He's very young still, but this whole mold of this current rendition of the Hawks team does not work. I think it's time for them to blow it up. And that does not saying trade Young, trade Trae Young, keep him. But everything else around there, I think, needs some sort of change. And I think that should start with Dejounte Murray because they even did have some success before he was there. Him being there kind of made them worse, at least in the standings, although I think he's a great player. So obviously they're going to ship him off. Now in this trade, they are getting Kyle Lowry. So they still get to keep a veteran point guard for this season. Not that I think they really need him. Obviously, they got Trae Young as the guy. He's a guy with experience. So most importantly here, Kyle Lowry is an expiring deal. Yes, I know Hawks fans, you don't want Kyle Lowry, which is why he'll be gone by the start of next season. And that'll allow them to get off $30 million off of the books with Kyle Lowry's huge contract expiring. Also in this trade, I have them getting Caleb Martin from the Miami Heat. He's a guy that I think fits very nice in that system because he can play defense. Anytime you can put more defensive guys next to Trae Young, I think that is a great thing. Now, they do have a bit of a log jam at that wing-ish spot. They could start, 2 through 4 spot because a guy like Caleb Martin, I think, could play the 2 through 4. As could a guy like DeAndre Hunter. Bogdan Bogdanovic is coming off the bench for them right now, but he could start at the 2 or 3. And then, of course, you got Jalen Johnson having a breakout season who could really play, the 3 or 4 also. So I do think there would be a spot for Caleb Martin in their starting lineup. I just can't say for certain because I'm not sure how the Hawks feel about Bogdan and DeAndre Hunter. So that being said, I think the Miami Heat maybe should look to trade him because he has a player option at the end of this year. He will opt out and sign somewhere else for more money. And I don't think that'll be the Heat just because I don't think they can afford to keep him. I love Caleb Martin. I want him on this roster come playoff time. But unfortunately, I don't think this roster as is as close to a championship favorite as I would like to be. I think there's room for improvement, right? Because I've said in previous videos, I'm picking this Heat team to win the championship. I'm not going to lie to you. That being said, I don't think that means they can't improve. And I do think they're improving in this trade. Like I said, they'd be losing Caleb Martin after this season anyways, so it's not the end of the world. Now, like I said before, the Hawks traded 3 first-round picks to get Dejounte Murray. Now they are getting 2 first-round picks and Nikola Jovic, who could sort of be looked at as a first-round pick. Obviously, he was just drafted, a year and a half ago, and he's certainly shown moments. Started a game versus Utah, I think he had like 5 fouls in 9 minutes. But the game before that, I forget the opponent, but he was absolutely awesome. So I think he's a guy that they would love there as well because he's a 4. I think they could use someone, that could play great next to Clint Capella or just, he's a very promising young player. Now, obviously, they're not getting as much back as they traded for Dejounte Murray, but I think it's close enough, and there's some added benefits there, like the Kyle Lowry expiring, that maybe the Hawks could bite on this. Now, from the Heat perspective, you are getting Dejounte Murray, and to make the salaries work, you are also getting Patty Mills, who is a random scrub Heat killer, Hall of Fame. I have not forgiven him for what he did in 2014 Finals. That being said, still a pretty good player. It doesn't say on here how old he is. I forget off the top of my head, but he's old as hell. So he is an expiring deal. He probably won't be here next year unless he wants to re-sign for a vet minimum or something. But he's still a guy that can contribute. And most importantly, he could play backup point guard, which this Heat team as is does not have a backup point guard. And as a guy who has experience, I think he'd be pretty valuable as a backup point guard on a team that is trying to win a championship. So, and that would give the Heat a starting lineup of Dejounte Murray, Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler, Jaime Jaquez Jr., and Bam Adebayo. Now, which I think is amazing, by the way. That's part of the reason I think I'll do this trade. They'd have one of the best and most versatile starting lineups in the NBA. Now, losing Caleb opens the door for more Jaime Jaquez minutes, which I think is something we are all a fan of. Yeah, anytime that guy is on the floor, he's doing everything out there, and he can defend. Not as good as Caleb, but he can still defend, so I don't feel like you're losing too much defense there. And now, of course, adding Dejounte Murray next to Tyler Hero. I talked a little bit earlier how I love that pairing. You can kind of let Dejounte focus on the more quicker guards out there, and then you could have Tyler Hero not have to worry as much about buckets. And plus, the Heat like to switch everything, so now if there's a switch, you might have Dejounte Murray on them instead of Kyle Lowry, who's kind of getting cooked a lot of the times on defense anyway. So I think his fit on the Miami Heat is perfect for that reason. So that's pretty much all I got to say about this specific trade. One thing you got to note, I guess, which is true for any trade, is this would kind of knock the Heat out of a Donovan Mitchell sweepstakes, out of a Pascal Siakam sweepstakes. Those are some pretty hot names right now, especially after the Raptors traded OG. I'll have plenty more trade videos out. Don't worry. And I do plan on having a Siakam one at some point too, because I do like him a lot. Now, theoretically, the Heat could still make salaries work with Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson, but you're trading your only 2 tradable first-round picks. They could get an extra by doing like a side trade with OKC, but really you're talking about 1 first-round pick. I don't think that's enough to get anybody great or substantial. So obviously by doing this, you're kind of saying this is your lineup for the next several seasons. So that's all I got to say for this video. I want to know if y'all would do this trade if you're in Miami Heat. If not, do you want Dejounte Murray at all? And if so, what would you be willing to give up? But make sure to like the video and subscribe, because that does help me out a lot. And I'll be reading all y'all comments. So I do appreciate y'all. And I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.
Look, pull up in your city trying to get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.